Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to the Daily Compliance News. The Daily Compliance News is an offering of the Compliance Podcast Network. Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox. I'd like to welcome you to a new edition to the Daily Compliance News. Hopefully, every Sunday, I'll be running a special book review edition. In the book review edition, I'm going to take a look at book reviews that came out over the weekend in the Financial Times, the Wall Street Journal, and in the New York Times. First up, from the Financial Times, a review of the book Our Man Down in Havana, the story behind Graham Greene's Cold War spy novel by Christopher Hall. In this book, Hall tells the story of Graham Greene's visits to Cuba and how they form the basis of Our Man in Havana, perhaps the greatest satirical spy novel ever. Next up, we have from the Wall Street Journal. On each Saturday, it has a column, The Five Best, and today we have The Five Best from Allison Lurie on heroines over the age of 50. They include Staying On by Paul Scott, The Moving Finger by Agatha Christie, Oliver Kittredge by Elizabeth Scott, Mrs. Palfrey at the Claremont by Elizabeth Taylor, and Fair and Tender Ladies. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, a review of Mr. Straight Arrow, the story of John Hersey. For those who are not aware, and hopefully there's very few listening to this that are not aware, John Hersey is, of course, the best known as author of Hiroshima, published as an in-issue length in the New Yorker in 1946, and a book a year later. It's not been out of print since that time. It is a dramatic telling of the bombing of Hiroshima and, more importantly, its aftermath. But Hersey was much broader than that, obviously. He was an old-fashioned writer and reporter who can best be described with the words decency. So it's a great book for you to get into the life of John Hersey on. And we conclude with the By the Book column in the Sunday New York Times Book Review. And today they have Gary Snyder. Gary talked about how Ovid and Metamorphoses still is an inspiration to him. He said that Ovid, in a sense, tried to tell the entire Roman story. I took it as a challenge for a storyteller of the planet. It's certainly a great way to think about storytelling. It's a great way to think about how the classics can still inform what you do today. I found it particularly inspiring because he talked about two of his favorite novelists of all time, Marcel Proust and Murasaki Sakabu. Each of those authors he reads, his famous favorite essayist is Eliot Weinberg. And he talked about the books he read as a child and what he inspired him to go forward. Once again, he returned to the subject of Metamorphoses, and that it is one of not only the classics, but it continues to inspire him and continues to inspire others going forward. I hope you've enjoyed this first book review on the Daily Compliance News. I look forward to bringing this to you, like I said, hopefully on a regular basis as I read all of these papers every weekend. And there's some great books, stories about authors, and stories about books. So I would encourage you to check them all out. We've linked to them in the show notes. Thank you. As you may know, we've had several new offerings on the Compliance Podcast Network. One of those includes Popcorn and Compliance, where Jay Rosen and I take a look at compliance through the lens of movies, both current, contemporary movies, and classic movies. We recently premiered two new shows on the Compliance Podcast Network in modern medium. Paris Fox takes a look at how you go through the process of designing art and why it's so important for the compliance practitioner to utilize these skills in their communications with their employees. In Forensically Speaking, Jonathan Marks helps you understand the forensic side of compliance.